And welcome to the Talon Outdoors Show. I'm Charlie.
JD.
Captain Paul Tyre.
And Dale.
And I'm Grant.
There we go. Yeah, Fred had something he had to do today. Unfortunately, I think he had to attend the funeral. So, but we are not in that attitude with him not being here. I'm actually a little excited. I might get a word in edgewise.
I'm gonna hide that. I'm gonna hide that thing over there that's in the corner for when Fred comes back. I got something for him. He just don't know what it is.
Surprise, I don't like loud noises, and you sure made one. But anyhow, well, Dale, welcome to the show again.
Hey, appreciate it, y'all.
Just moseyed on in here, filled in at a great time. We might have a guest later in the show. I just got to wait and see if he shows up. But as always, we're glad to have you here.
Well, it's good to be here, man. I'll tell you what, I was going to tell all y'all about fishing with old Captain Paul last Sunday.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, went out there on the big lake and caught some bass. Caught some big bass.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's you normally catching redfish and
might be getting him liking this bass fishing.
We're gonna be doing that Sunday. I got a trip planned Sunday going after redfish.
Well, I'll tell you what, this weather's turning a little nice.
Oh,
man,
it's so nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody called me today, says, "Hey, I need to get some birds, some quail from you. With this nice weather, I want to put some birds out." And I went, "Hey, nice weather? What's he talking about?" And I got up and walked outside and went, "Holy cow!
Yeah,
this is nice weather."
Had me some of
it
that.
was 60-something degrees in the morning. I was like, "Oh, I like this." So I went and caught him some birds to go work with his dog a little bit.
I just hope it holds out, because as this show is airing, I'll be riding that Massey Ferguson with a bush hog and a tiller behind it, planting food plots.
Oh yeah. It's
I-
a time of year.
Talking about, I got on my daddy's tractor that I've been working on, old 4440 John Deere, and I've been working on it for a while. And we've had it over here at the range for a while, and took it back home, and it's just an old 1978, 79 old school John Deere with no electronics, no DEF, nothing. Old school, the most common John Deere out there when they still made them, without all the electronics and craziness. And man, I put a bunch of money in that thing. It's got a cab, air conditioner, all new parts on it. And I'm kind of, I fit, when I work on air conditioners, they work about 10% of the time. But I got out there with a sprayer. I had the old tractor. I had another old tractor, and I said, I'm going to get out here and spray. But it's an open cab, and I said, man, I really don't want to be breathing these chemicals like I used to. And I looked over there at that tractor, and I said, you know what? I'm done with that thing. Let me go get on that big tractor. And I got out there and went out and sprayed Roundup on about 16 acres to kill everything I planted, because it didn't come out right. I'm just going to start over again in the spring with some new grass. And just riding that old tractor, it just felt good, Got daddy's tractor, got a new cab kit in it, foam, did all that stuff. Just being on my daddy's tractor that I used to ride on when I was in high school. And there he is. Our guest just showed up. Well, no, Dale didn't go nowhere. He missed first. He can be on the second segment. So we're going to talk about some river related stuff here in a minute. But anyway, it was an awesome feeling to go out there and actually do something. I put a ton of money in that tractor just so I could go spray one field. I don't know if I'm going to use it again after that. But
well, did it work good? Everything worked right?
Yeah. I got to go back in the top of the cab and readjust some air blower motor stuff that I apparently didn't bolt down right. I hit a couple bumps, and then things started squealing. So I got to get up there and re-secure some things. But
Need some more baling wire.
So I got some electric fence wire there, and I was thinking about getting some self-tapping screws and some wire and putting a loop in it and holding it down with that. Or the more modern equivalent of that is hose clamps.
Hose clamps.
Use hose clamps.
Duct tape. Zip
But I
ties.
found on Amazon they got a roll of the hose clamp cabling with the little spiral stuff, the hose clamp material. And then it comes with the little screw parts that tighten it up, and you cut it to length. And then,
Redneck can build a house with that.
If I had known about, I've never seen that before. We used to take like 7 of those hose clamps, straighten them out, and connect them all, where you had 7 different places
and run a screw through it.
And then, but now it's now you can get it to length.
Yeah.
I'm using that for all kinds of stuff. That's what I would have used. You could use hose clamps like mounting flagpoles on stuff, and I found that the hawks would leave my chickens alone if I get this little sparkly tape and hang it to a piece of PVC pipe over the chicken coop.
Really?
The flapping in the wind and stuff.
What do they hit that
It
tape
keeps those
instead?
cowbirds off of your dock too, so they don't crap all over the dock rail down by the pond. I'm just saying. Now it looks like some white trash lives there, but
Well,
oh well. Get me some tires and bury them in the yard and paint them white. Put some pink flamingos out there.
at the shoe pits, put it
I just
on.
offended somebody.
I was going to say that.
Somebody just said, "Well, I always had them growing up."
That sounds like the trailer park I grew up in.
Man, my granddaddy Johnson used to grow he used to grow peppers in he found an old washing machine somewhere.
Yeah.
Take the old galvanized or that enamel back then. It was a
Old tub.
enamel plated or enamel coated tubs out of the and had holes in them and everything. Makes great planters. They were half a dozen of them all around his yard with peppers and flowers and whatever else growing in them. That just sunk down in the ground and fill them with dirt, and they drain well because they got holes in them. And that's what he grew peppers in. Yeah. So, man, it is what it is.
Awesome.
That's the thing about rednecks. They can make do with all kind of stuff that they
Well,
get
if you're
hold
talking about stuff to put stuff in, like if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or anywhere and you get those little $3 blue buckets, those things are awesome for about 6 months, and then they dry rot and they fall apart. They ain't no good. But if you are on a farm and you got hydraulic fluid or motor oil and you get those 5-gallon buckets, now they used to, you had to cut the top, those little slots and pry that thing off. They make tools to do that with. Nowadays they got like a little zip plastic thing. You just pull it like a tab and it zips around there and you can pull it off with your hands. And those buckets right there, man, those things
You
last
talking about
a while.
the steel buckets? Or no,
I'm talking about the plastic ones. It's a thicker, heavier, better, because they have to put motor oil and stuff in it. It's not like those cheap ones that you use for shopping. I mean, I go to Lowe's, I always get a bucket because you throw everything in it.
Well, back in the day, paint used to come in steel 5-gallon buckets. Commercial painters would buy paint that came in a steel 5-gallon bucket. The lid came off of. And my best friend Donovan, growing up, his dad was a painter. That's what he did. Mr. Weeks painted. He painted. If you needed a house painted, he painted. You know, that's what everybody in Chattahoochee hired him to paint stuff. And so Donovan always had a pile of them steel buckets. And we used to go run sucker nets and fish at night, and it was cold. I mean, you run sucker nets in the wintertime and catch them old humpy suckers in Ocheesee Pond. And we take them steel buckets and put about 6 inches of dirt in the bottom of it, fill it up with charcoal and lighter fluid over in there, and set it in the middle of the boat. Well, you got the sand on there that keeps the boat from getting hot.
Keep you warm.
You talk about a great heater. That was a fantastic heater. So we had our own little portable fire pit, if you will, and that's how we stayed warm out there at 30 degrees in the middle of the night running sucker nets.
Be careful not to burn your boat down.
Well, no, it's insulated. You're good.
I mean, you're right.
You know,
you can't do that with a plastic bucket.
No,
that's what I thought. That's what I thought you was talking about. One of them steel buckets, man. You can do all kind of stuff.
No,
with
you
that.
can still. There's still stuff that comes in steel buckets. It's like different kinds of varnishes.
See, I just
and
taught
finishes
everybody.
and
I
stuff.
just taught everybody something. You have you didn't know it, but you had a portable fire pit right there. Put you some charcoal briquettes in there and light them up, and there you go.
There you go, Paul.
I'm gonna try that this winter in the pontoon boat.
There you go.
I'm gonna do it.
There you go. Just make sure to put the sand in there. You got to put the sand in the bottom of the bucket because you don't want it to turn. You don't want it to turn over in the boat. So
how many inches of sand you put in the
I
bottom?
put about 6-8 inches of sand in the bottom of it. So you got a good heavy bucket there, and then that sand's going to insulate the
So
boat
you don't
from
have like
melting the carpet
AstroTurf on the bottom.
No.
Okay, because if you had that, then that metal might conduct enough heat to melt it.
Well, do have dry deck. It's rubber.
Yeah. Well, you might want to. This was in an old aluminum John boat. We were doing this in an old aluminum John boat that we had paddled out there in the middle of the night.
We just set it on top of some cinder blocks.
You got those heaters with the propane. I'm thinking, I'd be done knock that thing over catching a big one.
Well, those propane heaters, you knock them over, they'll turn off.
Oh,
That's
right.
But I did have one of them. Me and my son Justin, when he was a little boy, we were in a ground blind out here one morning. It was about 20 degrees, frost everywhere. We're in that ground blind, and the only propane can I could find that had a little bit of rust around the threads on it. Long story short, that thing caught fire with me and him in a ground blind. I removed the ground blind and we ran. I was like, this thing's gonna blow us up. It caught fire there, like to scared us to death.
And you didn't kill any deer that day?
No, we did not.
All right, we'll be right back. And we're back. So let's go ahead and get started. We have Jim McClellan, our old buddy, back again. Last time we were on the show, we were talking about the book I found at the CVS one day about the Apalachicola River and all the old school stuff. And I'd encourage y'all to go back and listen to that episode. It was a good show. And since that time, I've started following you in detail. Well, not too much detail. I ain't stalking you or nothing.
Stalking.
But
Stalking.
we started reconnecting, and everybody in here is of like mind. But I noticed, before we get to the business of the day, I do know that you're the chairman of the Riparian County Stakeholders Coalition, which is a nonprofit, I guess. I don't know if I even said that right.
You said it absolutely right. And if I'm chairman, and if I accomplish one thing in that organization, it's going to be to change the word riparian to river.
Yeah, because I don't know what riparian means.
It means along the river, and I told the guy who came.
Then that should be Rivarian and not riparian, because
unless
you're trying to fix it, you are trying to fix the river. So I mean, there you go. We are riparian the Apalachicola River. So,
that's exactly the issue I run into frequently there. But what?
I was wondering where that county was, because there's 6-7 counties in this state, and I'm pretty sure that ain't one of them. But there's 6 counties together. So I was thinking, well, maybe it meant something about to do with 6. Maybe it's the Indian word for 6 counties or something. I don't know. So y'all.
Just stop.
Hey, you from where we're from? You know what this? I know you're in communications and marketing and all that for a living. So y'all use big words.
No, we don't.
Oh, you don't. No, well, you just got back from Scotland.
I did. It was a wonderful trip. To leave 90 degrees, 100-degree weather in Florida and be cold in Scotland was. That was one of the best parts of the trip.
Did you take the right kind of clothes with you?
I did. I was actually cold one night, and then they had what they considered a heat wave for the last couple of days we were there, which it got up to 80.
Oh, man.
Bless their heart. That's wintertime for us.
They ain't one air conditioner in Edinburgh, Scotland. Those folks were hating life. They were cussing up and down.
What's the humidity like there?
Humidity wasn't all that bad. The last night we spent in the hotel room with no air conditioning, and we opened the window and didn't do any good. And it was that night was humid. That was just.
Yeah, I hear Brett's talking about the heat waves, and we're dying over here, and in all fairness, they don't know how to deal with it like we have to know how to deal with it, or we die. Yeah. But yeah, they don't get it's 110 and feels like 116, and
Oh yeah, they're good with 0, but 80, they're done.
So we're gonna get through this segment. We got that 5 minutes at the bottom. We'll talk about something else, and we'll come back in the third segment talk more about this. But so I was reading. I saw your article in the Democrat, our opinion piece on behalf of the river. So most of us don't know what's going on, and what I've seen in brief, my understanding is that and you can give us some history of the river and what it was used for and what happened to it and what damage it did, and then tell us about what's going on now. So in this segment, let's focus on the history, and then when we come back, we'll bounce back into what's going to happen and what you envision could be a better solution.
All right. Well, I'm happy to do it. This is all stemming from the fact that the Corps of Engineers now wants to restart dredging on the Apalachicola River.
They're talking about dredging, not just snagging, but dredging.
Dredging.
Okay.
For commercial traffic in the future.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. They're pitching all this under the guise of navigation. We're going to do this for navigation. We spent $100 million fixing the dams and the locks on the system. All good things. Fully supportive of that. They want to restore navigation. Absolutely. We're good with that. They want to go back to dredging exactly like they did for 50 years until Florida finally, both the economy, it was always a losing economic battle, but finally the combination of the economy in Florida under Jeb Bush denying them permits to dump their sand, that's when they stopped. And the reason that we denied the permit is over the course of that 50 or so years that they were dredging, even more than that, I think maybe 60 or 70 years, they were blowing sand out of the river They piling up on sandbars, blowing it directly out onto the banks. They were clogging up sloughs and creeks and things like that.
Used to watch that go on as a kid.
Yeah, and I have a Calhoun County Record article from 1964. If you want to know how I'm a second generation on this fight.
Mm-hmm.
My father and three other guys from Bluntstown went up to Washington, D.C. in 1964 to meet with Congressman Don Fuquay to complain about the Corps of Engineers. And the way my father told the story was, Don took them over to meet the 3 or 4 star general that was in charge of the Corps, and he patted them on the back and said, "No problem, I understand your concerns, and by God, I'll have my colonel from Mobile come over there, and he'll sit down with y'all, and y'all can work it out." And so the article is kind of celebratory. You know, they got up there, they got they got the job done. Well, my father said the Corps colonel did come over to Bluntstown and sat down with him, and Daddy said they went through, you know, here's all our concerns. You're blowing all this stuff out there. You're straightening these channels. You're messing up the river, and we need you to kind of figure out a way not to do that. And the colonel told him, "We're the Corps of Engineers. If you don't like what we're doing, get Congress to change the laws. But we do what we do, and we do it by our standards. And if you don't like it, you go pound sand." And honestly, to be honest with you, what I've seen in the last 15, 20 years, kind of being engaged in this, you know, at various ways, different levels, is not much changed. This is an organization. Go back to this. Everybody understand. Before the Corps of Engineers ever touched that river, before they ever knew there was a river there to mess with, for 9 months out of the year, you could reliably bring barges up the river. You know, we had paddleboats on the river for years and years and years. Barges come up. The problem was that 3 months out of the year, navigation up that river was unreliable. If it was low water, you might not be able to get your barges up. Now, here's the common sense part of this. Where this is. I always tell people, here's the situation. Our boats don't fit on your river part of the year. It is only the United States Army Corps of Engineers that looks at that problem and says, "Well, obviously, we got to fix your river."
Yeah.
I mean, this is an organization that has been second guessing God for more than 200 years now, despite the fact they've been wrong every time.
Yeah. And absolutely destroy, as my granddaddy called it, they dug that 9-foot deep ditch down the middle of the river and pulled every log and anything that a bass could hide behind out of it. And, you know, my grandparents moved to Chattahoochee, I want to say probably in the really early 1950s, when Gulf Power was putting in the power plant over there. And he just talked about the difference between the quality of the river and the fishing and all that stuff between that time and when the Corps started dredging and digging and cutting that ditch, as he called it. And just, you know, I grew up on it when it was navigable and had buoys out and dredged it and all that. It was still good, but it wasn't near what it had been when they left it alone.
Well, and that's the thing that a lot of people, and this is one of the reasons I'm on this show right now, a lot of people remember that when there was navigation on that river, things were better. You know, the oysters were healthy, blah, 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 blah. You could fish. But there's two components to navigating. If I could put a billboard up and say this, boats float on water, they don't float on ditches. Mm-hmm. The Corps of Engineers, when they restore navigation, they'll tell you about the dredging and all that kind of stuff. What they don't tell you is that they also have to then release enough water upstream to float those barges. So now, our first shot out of the bag in our first conversations, what we've said to them is, if you know you're going to have to release water anyway, why not start with that and then see what you actually have to dredge to keep a reasonable navigation window open?
Yeah.
And what we run into is bureaucracy. And and we can get into a lot more detail about that, but basically that's the heart of the problem is the Corps of Engineers does not want to return they do not want to do this. They ran into a buzzsaw. They had to fight with Florida for years and years and years, had the permits denied, got bad press, and they don't want to go down that road again. So what they're offering up now, because Congress is making them do this. Congress has told them, you're going to do this. So now what they're going to do is, this is the way I read this situation, is they're going to offer us two choices. Either we go back to exactly what we were doing before 2004, or nothing. And if you've got a different idea, we have about a month to submit not just an idea, a full-fledged proposal of how they should do it differently. That is the biggest bureaucratic, lazy.
Yeah.
Well, have they fixed the locks and all at the dam?
That's in progress.
Okay.
That's going to take a while. I think that.
So
what are they going to do about the Georgia and Lake Lanier not releasing water from up there to get down here? Where are they going to get the water from? Because that's really the problem with the Flint and the Chattahoochee is it's getting short-stopped, mainly the Chattahoochee.
They control all of it.
Yeah.
Right.
They can turn dials up there. You know, there's a guy named James Haythorne at the Corps who is the water manager, and you see barge traffic now on that river, and that's because when they need it, they turn the dials and let water flow.
So below the dam, you see barge traffic?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's been years since I hadn't spent I haven't spent nearly as much time over there as I did in my youth, but it's been a long time since I've seen a barge.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be back in a couple minutes, and we may change the topic of discussion a little bit on the bottom of the hour, so and come back to this, so our Tallahassee audience can pick up on it. We'll be right back. And we're back. So when we left, we were talking about dredging and the Army Corps and their role with the river, and so I remember growing up seeing the dredging, because I thought that was as a kid. I'm like, hey, that's cool, but what are they doing? And Daddy was, well, they're trying to keep it where the barges come. Then the big barges would come by, and and I thought that was cool as a kid because I had no idea about the environment or anything. It was just we're catching fish.
There's a tugboat. There's a tugboat going up the river pushing a barge.
That thing was just cool. Daddy would just sit there and he'd wait for the wake, and then we'd whatever, and it would go on, and I'm sitting there watching it go off in the distance because I'm a kid. It's like watching the train go by. To me, it was just the coolest thing in the world. And I had no idea, but and JD and I were talking the other day about the economic impact that when they quit doing a lot of that, and I think a lot of it was just a sign of the times and the way transportation worked back in the day, and so now we've been more reliant on trucks and maybe trains to do a lot of stuff that barges used to do. Do you see the ability for barges to navigate the river and Lake Seminole and all the way up and back with other methods?
Oh yeah, it's and even Tri-Rivers Waterway Development and their which represents Georgia and Alabama, and I think a couple of the Jackson and Gadsden may have a couple of representatives on that. They're the ones who are really pushing this, and it's their member companies who will benefit a lot from it. They have said, we don't need to return to what we were doing back in the day. Mm-hmm. We can. There's ways to do this that are less intrusive than what we used to do. And so everybody recognizes that technology's changed. Nobody's got anything. We don't have anything against barges. We think it's, we're good with it. We want them to prosper. We don't agree with them that there's as much economic benefit as they say there is to Florida. We would have seen that while they were moving those barges up. How
long would it take for that to even come back? I mean, because you don't have anything no infrastructure on the river anymore.
It'll be years before they actually could start doing it. The problem is if you ever work with government, is the decisions are being made right now. The irreversible decisions are going to be made here in the next year. Mm-hmm. And after that, it may be a couple more years before they start dredging. Yeah. But if you didn't, they're going to throw their hands up and say, oh, well, no, the time to enter in on that was back in the day.
So did it come from Congress as a bill or something, or is this an administrative decision that the current administration made? Because that's going to change.
Well, the authority was already there. Mm-hmm. They already, it's in their rules and regulations now that they can go back to dredging. I mean, they never lost that ability. All they lost was Florida took away the ability to, we denied them the permit to dump sand in the banks after years of negotiating with them. I mean, this happened under Jeb Bush's administration, but Jeb didn't just wake up one morning and decide that, oh, well, I don't like this. Starting when I was working with Lawton Childs, and Buddy McKay, we were negotiating in good faith with the Corps, we were taking evidence to them and telling them, this is caused by your dredging. You're filling in these sloughs, and we show them, and I don't know that they've ever even acknowledged that damage. But right now what's going on is we're spending $30 million to restore the sloughs, starting from south to north, moving upstream, going in and digging out all of that sand and all that stuff. But absolutely, barge traffic is fine. It can be done with lesser scale dredging. Absolutely.
So I read something somewhere they were starting to release more water to try to maintain a 7-foot channel in the river now. Does that sound right?
All I've been told directly is that, and this was from the water manager, James Haythorne, up at the Corps of Engineers, who said, if they have barge traffic coming up that river, they can release more water. That's an administrative decision. That's not God Almighty or Congress. That's within the power of the...
So I'm just wondering when that starts. So they're going to go out there and start digging a hole. It's like, if you build it, they'll come kind of deal. I mean, is that what it is?
Oh yeah, and you'll see an economic impact study that says, everything that Bristol's going to become the next port of Miami, and there's going to be the Queen Mary parked in Mariana and Sneed. And
we'll be right back. And we're back. So for anybody listening that hadn't just tuned in, we're talking to Jim McClellan about the impact that the Army Corps is planning to dredge the Apalachicola River and apparently Lake Seminole and everything else, repair all the locks, and restore navigation on the river, which sounds like a great economic boon to the area, especially for these economically strapped counties up and down the river that don't really, back in the day there used to be ports and this and that. It sounds like a great plan, but I'm sitting here and we're on the break. We're talking about, well, who's going to get money in their pocket from that? Where do the jobs come from, and how far out is that kind of impact, and how does that really weigh against the environmental impact that it can have on the river? Most people don't care. I mean, they just don't, because they don't fish the river, they don't live on the river. But they shouldn't care on the other way either way, because there's not going to put any money in anybody's pocket. Who benefits from this?
Well, in theory, Tri-Rivers Waterway Development Association represents a lot. They're an economic development organization, and so their goal is to bring in industries. And I think that they believe that if they can, get reliable navigation back for several months out of the year, that they're going to attract, and they may have some prospects out there that will use that navigation, that will make the difference between, if they can get reliable access from Georgia to the coast, that they can attract companies that will do that.
Where's that information at? How do you get that information?
You'd have to talk with Tri-Rivers folks, but they've done an economic impact study. Now, I looked at it, and I've commissioned a few economic impact studies, and 100% of the time when I was paying for it, it actually agreed with what my position was. Now, that's my cautionary note about any economic impact. All right?
I want an impact statement that says this, and that's what you get.
There's a reason why y'all appreciate this. There's a reason why the same people that do economic studies don't also do business plans. Because this is fantasy and then this is reality. But I don't have reason to. I agree that there's probably a really good economic benefit to Georgia and Alabama for this. I think that their speculation about what we get here in Florida is wildly exaggerated. And I base that on the fact that we didn't see it before. It wasn't like there was tremendous demand. The demand for barge traffic was going down. That was already happening long before we didn't stop dredging until 2004. probably by the early 90s, barge traffic was diminishing. Now, barges are very efficient in terms of, that's another environmental thing you look at. They're more efficient. You got to transfer bulk or
mostly fuel, fertilizer, and gravel is basically what went up
exactly,
and down that river more than anything.
If you got to transport those things, boats are probably the best value per mile, per gallon of fuel that you have.
Especially going downstream.
Exactly.
Coming up, I don't know.
And so there's benefit there, but then what you have to weigh that against is, okay, is there another alternative? Do we have to go back and do this like we did before? And the answer is no, we certainly do not.
Well, we've kind of been doing it without barges for a while. I mean, so where you were trying, or we're going to benefit one industry, okay, but we're going to be pulling it from other industries. So, I mean, there's a balance. There's only a need for so much gravel, so much grain, so much stuff. So, I mean, and the amount of money that's going to take to build the infrastructure back for the areas that we used to go to Bluntstown and drop off grain down there at the grain mill. They would load barges back in the day when I was a little kid. And John Smargy's still down there, still collect. He go down there. That's where we get our corn from. I mean, that still exists. What's left of it after the hurricane, and they don't load barges anymore. I mean, but that's what used to happen down there in Bluntstown. And so there was industry there, but it's gone now. Okay, so all that's gone somewhere else. So let's say you rebuild it. All right, that's great for one area, but where's it coming from? Now, I don't know. I'm a Jackson County resident. If I could see some benefit to Jackson County directly.
Well, there was a port in Jackson County, right? Just between the Gulf Power Plant and the Jim Woodruff Dam in Chattahoochee. There was a port there, but it never was super busy.
Yeah, but is that going to come back? Is that going to put
it would have to be?
No,
it's not. And it would have to be rebuilt because of the condition it's in and hadn't been operated as a port in years. The pylons are rotten on it.
Okay, so now what if you think about, though, all right, in terms of economic development, there's some things that exist now that didn't exist back then, or conditions now that exist that didn't exist back then. One of them is Apalachicola is now a booming tourist.
Absolutely.
A lot of, fishing boats and stuff like that coming in and out of there, a lot of people coming down to St. George Island. What if you had, again, a marina, a campground, overnight dock for boats in Bluntstown? What if you had the same thing in Weewahitchka? What if tour boats like Captain Gill down there, former Vietnam Marine Corps helicopter pilot, runs a tour boat down in Apalachicola? Captain Gill could come all the way up. If he had a place to go to bring people to go to dinner, I'll tell you this, one small boat stopping and buying something is worth as every other boat passing by and going somewhere else. That's a much more realistic thing that can happen without intensive capital development.
Right. Well, I said something to Charlie the other day. If I win the $800 million lottery or whatever it is, I'm gonna buy a daggum paddle boat, rig it out like you see in Savannah and you see in New Orleans or whatever, and come to Chattahoochee, get on the paddle boat, go for a dinner cruise, have a good time, whatever it is, and then come back and go home. And the beauty of that river to me eclipses any potential commerce you might get out of it.
Absolutely.
Just the sheer natural beauty of that river. And I don't know. Maybe there's no market for it. Maybe somebody has done an economic study to see if there's a market for something like that. But
y'all come on down to JD's White Trash Tour. We're gonna crack open a beer and slide down the river and look at all the white trash on the sandbars. And
you laugh. You laugh at that. But there are people, I guarantee you, who would dearly love to come back and have an authentic experience. That's what people are looking for. That's the thing that we have that's starting to disappear, and if we hold on to it and play it right, things like that we think are silly and we think are routine, there's a lot of people who think, that's pretty neat.
How many times you go through the mountains and stop at some little roadside thing and get out and look at some of the local, the old trades and the museum type stuff and the things going on and the cultural things that people go to and they want to see, homesteading's making a return. Everybody's going back to that, to do something. I mean, and I laugh, but what JD's talking about is not a bad business plan to do something like that, because people would go there. They're always looking for that experience. And no, we ain't buying paddle. You can go do that. That's
like I said, if I win the lottery there, I'm not going to tell anybody, but there will be signs.
Yeah, guys, I do numerous eco tours a year. Just people coming, wanting to, not really fishing, just want to see an alligator or an osprey, or you know what I mean.
And think about it. Here's
Yeah,
exactly right. And it seems, to us who grew up around it, we take it for granted. We
absolutely take it for granted. That's exactly right.
Here's another thing that I'd love to see pop up and return again is those old fish camps.
Yeah.
Those, you could revive those things and turn them into, just sort of a back, like you're talking about the mountains. We go up there and we stay in these cabins, and people go, "Why in the world would you stay in that?"
Well, I mean, when we JD's taking me out in Mississippi to duck hunt years ago. Remember that old fish camp?
Lake Chotar.
Yeah, went up there and there was a fish camp, right?
Yeah,
and then
Lake Chotar fish camp.
Yeah, and they did duck hunting part of the year, and most of the year it was fishing. And nice place to stay, and right there on one of the lakes along the river.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Yeah, it doesn't, and what we're talking about doesn't prevent that from happening. It enables that to happen. We could still have a port that has you could still have commercial cargo coming in. You could still get it out if there's a market for it. But this is much more realistic and much more get it done now.
Yeah, I agree. I hate to see them. I hate to see them ruin and they did when they, like you said, because some of the attraction to me on those rivers are the sloughs and the little lakes and the oxbows and places that are still very, to a degree, very natural.
Daddy didn't take me fishing on the river. He took me fishing up the sloughs. That's where we caught the fish. All right, we'll be right back. And we're back. So we were talking a little bit on the break. I kind of want to make these points. And Dale brought up something about the effect on Apalachicola Bay and oysters. So before we get to the channel stuff, what is your understanding of? I mean, you said on the break that nutrients feed the oysters. It comes from sediment, and then the dredging can affect that in some way. What was your understanding of that?
Well, there's two things. There's all the dredging. You're putting sand out in the floodplain, and that is interfering with the flow of nutrients to the oysters. But one of the things the Corps did when they finally said, okay, we're not going to manage the Apalachicola River for navigation, they turned off the spigot upstream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you talk to them, they'll say, act of God, it was a drought, we couldn't do anything about it or whatever. The truth is, when they stopped navigation, when that wasn't part of their mission, they turned back toward Lake Lanier and said, okay, now Atlanta water supply is what we're going to focus on. That's going to be the top priority. And so that's when we started getting into...
Basically, y'all don't need the water down there, so we're going to keep it up here.
It was, your radio fans won't be able to see this, but that was what that was back to Governor Bush.
We're going to choke y'all off because y'all shut us down. And you mentioned this, I think it was on the break, that they view the river and the lake as a project, not as a river and a lake.
It's a right-of-way to them.
Yeah, to them
it's an inefficient right-of-way. They think of them as DOT on the river.
Yeah, it would be 4 lanes if they could make it, and high speed, the whole 9 yards, because that's the way they view things from an engineering point of view, not an environmental point of view or a local impact point of view. You also mentioned that the 6 counties need to stick together because basically everybody upstream is the dog and we're the tail, and they wag us, and if we don't stick together, that's what's going to happen is down here we're just going to take whatever they send.
That's absolutely right. We've got there's 6 million people in the greater metropolitan Atlanta area. There's 158,000 in our 6 counties. And if you're a Georgia member of Congress from Georgia, it doesn't matter what letter you've got out, say D or any other letter you want to put out there, you work for the Atlanta Regional Commission, which is Home Depot, Lowe's, and you got all those folks are in the Atlanta Chamber, not the Regional Commission, but those are big companies. Southern companies like that get tons of money. So that's who those companies want something done, it gets done. Congressman Dunn, he's got, he's got the Apalachicola. He's our only congressman that's got the Apalachicola River in his district. So we don't have political muscle up there. What we've got is, and we can't do anything about what the Corps does in the river. That's they've got a congressional mandate to do whatever they want to do. The only thing we've got any control over is
the banks.
And
So you said there was a softer solution to this. It might be more localized solution. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, and just a few people I've talked to think, this is an idea that we can't even consider. Okay, this is not. They don't even hear this idea. But here, release the water that you're going to release. Let's see what is a reasonable window of navigation. Maybe it's right now it's 6 months. Right now it starts, no matter what the river level is, navigation season starts on January 1, ends on June 30, I think, whatever 6 months is from that. No matter what. So why don't you say, okay, let's look at when you can actually move water on it. What makes sense? If you release the water that you're going to have to release anyway, you know what you're going to have to release. Let's stop talking about the ditch and let's start talking about the water. Boats float on water, not ditches. You go out here and dig a hole as long as you want to. Doesn't mean you can run your John boat down it. You got to have water. So give us the water. That's what the oysters need. That's what we need in the sloughs and the creeks and everything else. And that's what you need to float a boat. So let's start with that. And I think that what they're going to find is there's about 3 or 4 high spots that need to be hit every now and then. And then that reduces from 107 miles, now we're into single-digit miles, if that. And from millions of cubic yards of sand, now we're down into thousands. And once we get there, doesn't it make sense, instead of bringing the boats all over from wherever east of Bibb, that we get local contractors come in, let them do it. We can run it through the RCSC. The counties can share it like the district share road grader. It can be done. We got enough common sense in 6 counties. We can work something out. We can take care of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a value to the sand that comes out, and they were just putting it wherever they could to get it out of the way. There is a economic value to the sand.
And if the Corps is not doing it, we can recognize that.
Well, you should just kick it off to the side, and then sand settles. And so it's like building a sandcastle at the beach. You know what happens.
Well, back when they were dredging the river, they'd go dredge the river out, and they'd start at one end and go to the other end. And when they got to the other end, they'd turn around and come back, and then they get to that back and forth.
And they didn't care where it went.
And they didn't care where it went.
Here's what the Corps is graded on. Now, so we look at that and say, well, that doesn't make any sense. But if you're the colonel in charge of the Corps of Engineers, and you're ready to do your OER, officer evaluation report, was what we called it back in my day. That's one of those things you put on, moved,
how many
25 million cubic yards of sand out of Apalachicola River. Never mind, it was the same sand
over and over again. Yeah, just recycling the sand. Yeah.
So, I mean, and with technology being what it is today, I mean, you go out fishing with Paul and you're watching the fish exactly where they are, and you know exactly where to you can't tell me that the technology hasn't advanced since they were dredging back then to be able to ride that river and pinpoint the locations to go, we need right here, this 200-yard stretch right here needs to be worked on, or that stretch down there. They shouldn't just, like they did back in the day, just ride and dig and ride and throw sand off to the side and block every side road. I mean, it's like when they grade a county road, if you don't talk to the road grader, sometimes it requires a phone call, but they'll go pull a ditch and it'll cut off, like with mine right now. Okay, so my pond where I water my cows beside my house, a lot of the water comes from up the hill across the highway, runs down the hill, under the culvert, through the culvert, down the side of the dirt road, and I got it ditched to where it comes onto the land like it traditionally has and keeps our pond full. It's overhead water. A lot of it is. Not all of it, but some of it. And it filters through the woods. It cleans the water. It's crystal clear when it gets out to the pond. Well, we had a new road grader guy come through not long ago, and he pulled the road in a different direction, and he channeled all the water away from that. And I didn't know it because that's a dirt road just past us. I didn't see what was going on. I wondered why the pond wasn't holding as much water. And I went over there and I checked it out, and lo and behold, they had pulled the ditch a different way and blocked off the way the water ran. And that affected me personally, affected my cows. And so I got the number. I called the guy who's over that department, 2 days later, it's fixed because they're a local organization. And I saw one of the county commissioners there, and I said, Donnie, I just want to compliment your people. And he goes, well, I can't really have any say-so over that, but I appreciate it, the fact that they're doing their job. And I said, well, part of being in a small town is if you can work together on stuff like that. Right. And that's the problem is if it was the Army Corps running the road grading around my house, I'd probably still have a dry pond. But,
You'd not only have a dry pond, you would be I just wrote a letter to the commander, the new colonel in charge of the Corps. And I congratulated him on his command. I said, look, we're about to go down a road. We've been down before. Let's avoid this. Let's work together on this. There's a third way. There's a lot of middle ground here that we can talk about and do it if you guys will work with us. And what I got in response, probably the same thing you get in response, was I didn't even get a response to the note I sent. What I got was a copy-paste out of a document that they put together after their Zoom call that substitutes for that's their public outreach. We're going to do a Zoom call, and you can email us questions. I got the response to one of their questions that says, alternative ideas must be submitted to Corps of Engineers by such and such a date. Now, I'm not fluffing myself up, but, we got 6 counties here that matter.
Yeah.
And we just basically got told to go pound sand.
Once again.
Yeah.
Second generation of getting told to go pound sand. Something to be proud of there.
So,
I love government bureaucracy. We're from the government. We're here to help.
Yes, sir.
Well, Paul, you see any impact on Seminole if they start dredging the channel back out from fishing?
Well, there's some areas up there out in front of the Saunders Slough near the man-made island where they dug through there, and there's grass growing, so that I don't think no barge is going to make it through there. They might need to dig something out right there. But we've had some, being a part of stewards of Lake Seminole, I do have to say, in the last 3 years, working with the Corps, DNR, the head biologists, it has really been impressive how they're starting to come around. So I've got someone I want you to reach out to for sure.
I absolutely hope that's.
I hope it continues to.
And I know, and I talk about the Corps generally. When I talk about that, I'm talking about the workers. I know they've got really good people that work there. I like a lot of their employees, but
you're right. That's a government-run thing, and they got set things. That's interesting.
We just can't let them throw their hands up and say you've got 2 choices.
Right. I totally agree.
Now,
all right.
Grant's holding up 2 hands and all his fingers. Now, one hand, that means you run out of time, JD.
I guess that means we got to come back next week.
We'll be back next week and see y'all then. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you all.